Hello everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? My name is Brian Morrison. I have been coming to you live every Wednesdays around 8:30 p.m. Central since basically the start of the year, working on building out some applications and doing it live for all you lovely folks on the interwebs. I was trying to get up and running on Facebook, but apparently it's down. It's getting like hammered right now. So yeah, I guess that's not happening. But thanks for joining me. I'm a software engineer based out of Chicago, Illinois. I work for a third-party logistics company, maintaining their API and other miscellaneous little tools and applications we have internally. On the side, I also like to write code, pretty much, just like what I do. It's what I love to do. So yeah, I figured I might as well share some of this knowledge with everybody and hopefully teach someone something. I like teaching people too. So a couple of quick updates. The first thing is that I started a Discord channel group. I guess it's called Discord group or server. I'm not sure. I'm somewhat new to Discord, but I started one of those things. The topic is pretty much live coding. I found there weren't a whole lot of good resources out there for live coding. Maybe I just didn't dig deep enough or whatever, but after trying to look for some articles on how to set up proper streams and whatnot, I just couldn't find a whole lot. So I decided, what the heck, let's start one our own. So if you go to codinglive.group, that's a direct link to the Discord invite. It'll drop you right into the welcome channel. You can see the rules. You can post a little introduction about yourself. I don't know, hop in there and start joining the conversation. The goal is really just to help people get acclimated to doing some live development, and gonna do some tips and tricks and kind of display a little bit more about my setup and how I've done things so far. I've only been doing this for a little over 2 months, but I've learned a lot, and it's been really fun. And I think live coding is a really good way to market oneself and kind of get out there and get your name known a little bit better, because people can always watch you live and then also watch your recordings, so people can see how skilled you are with what you're doing. So with that said, I feel like I had something else, but I don't know what it is right now. We'll go ahead and lead directly into what we're planning on talking about today, which is getting my application that I'm working on called Enviari. Enviari is a tool that's going to just allow people to ship product easier all around the country. Not like big businesses, but like small mom and pop shops and individuals who sell out of their house. It's going to help them just kind of, create the labels and package things and send them on the way a lot easier than trying to go to like FedEx or UPS or USPS.com. Those are kind of the three big ones in the United States, which is where I'm based at. But the trouble we ran into last week, that was 2 days ago I was doing this, was trying to get hooked into Square, which is the service I'm using to sync up customers. I eventually would like to look into getting to sync up orders, but looking at their API documentation, it doesn't look like they have that right now. So we're going to focus on just importing the customers, and then we'll see what we could do about importing orders or purchases. So that we ran into some issues there, but it turns out I was tired and just fat fingering something with arrays. I was using array.push to try and combine a bunch of arrays together, because I had to iterate over the API and pull it in based. It was just pagination, so they would only return 100 records at a time. So I had to go in there and kind of, if there was a cursor, is what they call it. If there is a cursor that exists in the response to the API call, that basically means there's more records to pull. So if it found a cursor, it would pull more records, and then I had to combine all those together into a single array that would be passed into the UI. Well, the problem I was having is I was using the wrong method on the array. So it's totally my fault, but we got that working. I sent out updated code on Twitter, so if you do follow me on Twitter, you could have seen that. Today we're going to try and work on authentication. Now, I did get a little bit of work done yesterday on it. So I started putting some of the pieces together. It uses an Oauth 2 flow. So I got part of it done. The problem is every time I try and make a call to the Square API to get a token back for my users, it throws that the code is not valid or accurate, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it didn't like the validation code that was being sent along, which I double checked and triple checked everything, and it seemed to be working okay. But we're going to dig a little bit into that today. Before I actually even get started on that, one of the things that I did that was totally dumb on my last stream is I showed off my environment variables, which contains all my private keys for all my different API calls. So that basically made me have to take 15 minutes out of my stream to go and reset all my keys to make sure that that does not happen again. Well, one of the things that I discovered today, and we're going to switch over to actually see the code, like so. And I'm also trying, if you notice on the right-hand side over here, I'm trying to, I think this, is it the right hand? That hand, it's flipped in the camera. Over on this side, I'm trying to show the Twitch chat. So if you are in Twitch, go ahead and drop a message and I'll respond. But one of the things I discovered you can do in VS Code is you can actually hide away files. So I want to make this a little bit bigger so people can see it a little easier. 1 second, We're going to zoom in a little bit more. All right, so that should be sufficient. Now, if I do, it's actually, you know what? There's a recording mode, isn't there? I recall there being some kind of way that you can specify recording mode. We're going to take a little sidestep here, and I'm going to try and figure out how to do that. Because then you can see the actual commands that I'm displaying here. So let's see, if we go VS Code, recording mode, let's see how to kick this off. Recording keys mode, yeah, this is what I recall seeing. Control K, Control S. All right, so let's try that. KS. Control K, Control S. No, it doesn't like that. Recording keys. See, I wish I could just call a function. Anyway, I'll try and figure that out later. We'll do that for next time. But what I did discover is that if I do a Control-Shift-P and go to Workspace Settings, Workspace Settings, you can actually look for the Hide Files setting, and you can specify a pattern in here, which is really nice for the streaming that I'm doing because I really don't want y'all seeing my environment variables. So we're going to go ahead and hide all those guys. Actually, we'll just do env. So if you notice on the left-hand side, I have my .env.dev staging and tests. Those are where all my private keys are stored. Granted, none of this stuff is actually production. It's all just for test only, but you know, I still would rather not because I'm kind of a security nut. So if I click OK, you'll notice those go away. Now, it doesn't actually show, or it doesn't actually delete the files or remove the files, but it makes them, it hides them behind the scenes, which is really awesome because now I'm not going to mistakenly open something I probably shouldn't. So, I was like, so yeah, I just wanted to show that off pretty quick. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go over what I've done so far with this authentication flow. I haven't done anything with the UI. I've kind of started planning for the UI, but let's go into services, Square, and I have my Square service. Right, so what we had set up in here last time was basically this here, export get customers. And if you hadn't seen my post on Twitter, this is where I was doing this wrong. I had to concatenate the arrays as opposed to trying to push one array onto another array. That didn't work. So now this does work, and when I call this method, once I can finally get the token, it pulls them all and throws them all in one array, which is awesome. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I might want to eventually introduce pagination into my API, but for now this is just fine. Let's go and let's see here. So Oauth 2. This is the Square API base. It's connect.squareup.com. Oauth 2 and token is where I'm trying to get the information from. Their documentation says everything should be with a V1 or V2. I found that is a lie. If you try and do V1 or V2, it complains that that particular method doesn't exist. So through some trial and error, I discovered that you have to get rid of the versioning. It's just Oauth 2/token. So here's the payload that I'm sending along with my request. It's a post request, and it goes there. Now, what this should do is when you pass all this information, I should receive back a token. Hold on 1 second. Let's go ahead and open up my development browser. And let's go to Square. I'll show you this documentation real quick. Square developer document. While I'm pulling this up, if you guys don't mind, leave a comment about what you think about my Twitch branding setup. I worked on those images and the wording a little bit today, and threw some of those panels up there. So I'm trying to get a little more of a professional look to it. So yeah, there is the authorized endpoint is Oauth 2.authorize. Now this would go through the browser, so you pass in the client ID, and if you need to, this is optional, the scope, and then the session is whether you want them to re-authenticate. State is the other one I'm interested in, because that's basically where I'm going to pass my redirect to. Let me make this a little bit bigger so people can, whoa, too big. There we go. Hold on. Back it off a little bit so I can get around that chatting, that chatty chat. Okay, so the state here is where I would pass my redirect value to. So the flow would be the user tries to authenticate against Square. So they send a GET request to that API with that. Basically, the important part is this here, this client ID within the parameters. That presents them with an authentication page to say, hey, would you allow this app to have access to your information? They say yes, and then from there, if I remember this correctly, it actually redirects them back to the UI where I have to pass that code, which is, hold on, bring VS Code again. That code, which is this guy, this authorization code, that gets passed in. I make the request on the back end to Square's API, and then it returns back their token. Now, when I get that token, I want to save it with the user, so this way I can have it referenced, and it can pull the customers going forward. And that's kind of the first step. There's also a refresh endpoint, which we'll use to refresh the token, so it doesn't require them to authenticate, or does as little as possible. But we'll get there. This works fine. I have no problems with this. Where I'm running into issues with is this guy here. So the authorization response, okay, that's fine. I get that. The hold on, where am I? Authorization APIs, OAuth 2/token. So this is where I would get the token, right? So this is exactly the body which I showed you earlier, and this is what I expect back. And the access token is really what I'm interested in, at least initially. This does not seem to be working. It's saying that the code that I'm passing through is not correct. If the grant type is set to, this is required if the grant type is set to authorization code. Interesting. Which is this here. Perhaps that's what I was missing. Okay, let's try and go from here and see what happens. I'm going to go back into VS Code. So I think what I'm going to do, I was using Postman to pass a lot of stuff through, but in order to do that, in order to make the request directly, what I had to do is I had to display those keys on screen because they were stored in Postman. I guess I could have put them as a variable, but that's okay. We're going to make some progress on the UI today anyway. All right, so let's go into our UI. So, and if you're just joining for the first time, the UI is built in Vue. Backend is just Node. I'm using Express from my actual web server and building all the APIs out using that. This will eventually get published up to AWS. I'm going to throw Vue up on S3 so that can get published out to CloudFront. And then the API, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out based on the routes themselves. So as you can see under my app.js, I have all these routes under here being used. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use Azure DevOps to go ahead, and when I create my pipeline, it's going to deploy a separate Lambda function for each one of these routes here, so I get a little bit of granularity on the functions that are actually working, and I can get some good reporting and logging data from that, and it kind of just breaks it out. Really, it's not necessary, but that's kind of the way that I want to work it. Who knows? That might change, but that's neither here nor there. We're still a ways away from that. So I have my, let's see, where do I want to go into? Square service. Here's my client ID. This is what I should pass to. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of testing, is I'm going to go into my modules. I'm going to go into my main app. This is the main. This should have the navigation drawer on here. So okay, I'm using Vuetify as well to get some good material theming going on here. Here's my spacer. I'm going to go ahead and add a V button in here. V toolbar items. Actually, you know what I can do and make it easier? We're going to copy and paste this. Auth to square. Make this nice and easy. All right, we're going to create a function, and we're going to name this auth to square. If I can type auth to square. Now down in my methods, I'm going to create that method, auth to square. I don't need it to be a function. I don't need it to be async. I'm going to import in my service. So import square service from, if you're new to Vue, the @ sign designates that SRC folder, which is awesome. Services dot, what did I just name it? Just square service, right? It's not in a subfolder? No, it's not. Okay. I got to do some reorganization in that. I got the grand idea to split up my login portion of this into a different app, and then I realized it was dumb. So then I kind of took them and put them back together, and I still haven't fixed where the location of all the files are and whatnot. So I actually have there inside this Enviari here, there is the customer service, and the backend service. Those actually both call it the same API endpoint. I usually like to do one service per integration, I guess, which I guess my API is kind of considered an integration anyway. But I got to combine those eventually. I just haven't taken the time to do it. So we're going to name it squareservice.js. Go ahead and save that, and we're going to call let's see, square service dot let's see, what did I name this? Square service. Actually, you know what else I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this up on the right hand side so I can see exactly where. Look at that. We'll expand that out when I actually start doing stuff with the terminal, but I'm not doing anything right now. So authorize with square looks like the function that I'm calling, and all that should be doing, if I'd done this correctly, is this is going to set the window location to here, and then we'll see where that goes. But I want to make sure that this part works properly, and then once this is done, we're going to set the state in here so it gets redirected back to where I need it to go in order to parse out the code that I need to pass up to my API. All right, so let's try this. Let's log in. Oh, hold on, I gotta fire everything up. I'm not doing anything fancy on the right hand side here. I'm in the terminal, and I'm going to cd to my API and npm run dev because that's the script that I have, and then I'm going to cd to my UI and npm run serve because that's the script that's set up there by default. Why are you complaining? Oh, I installed Axios. I set up Axios but never installed it, so I got to do that first. So actually, I will go ahead and bring this out here so everyone can see what I'm working on. So that's building down here. This is my UI. I set up Axios, which is a library to make HTTP requests out to third parties, APIs, you know, whatever, anything that accepts HTTP. So I'm going to npm install save Axios. I think this is going to complain. I think Axios has a vulnerability, so hopefully by the time I launch this, it doesn't. Gonna let that guy load and install. Yeah, I see 2 high vulnerabilities. And then we're gonna do npm run dev. It's gonna start. Let's let this thing sit here for a second and make sure it doesn't crash right away. Okay, if I see this, that means I connected to my Mongo server, so that's fine. We get this out of the way. We don't need to see that anymore for now. So we're going to go back in here, localhost. Hopefully I got this all set up properly. I'm going to refresh this to make sure that this does appear to be working. Okay. Auth to square. It goes to square. I'm going to create an account. Do I want to create an account? I don't want to create an account. Bear with me for 1 sec while I enter my credentials on the other screen. You know what? I got some fancy scenes now, so I could say, look at this. Bam. Handling stuff. Y'all can't see it now. I actually had this last week when I was setting this up too, but hold on. Sometimes I can't think and talk at the same time. But I ended up showing my secrets anyway. I had the scene, didn't use the scene. I literally, if you go back and watch it, you can watch it on my YouTube channel because I stream everything to YouTube Live as well. If you go to yt.brianmorrison.me, instead of putting out the full channel thing, I went ahead and created a subdomain on my own website. You can go right to my YouTube and you can watch the last video. Literally the first thing I did was I'm like, hey, let's talk about development. Oh, hey, by the way, my environment variables are literally sitting on my screen when I shared it out. It's so, stupid. All right. So let's go ahead and sign in. And all right, so all I did, I'm going to transition back. All I literally did was sign in. I entered my credentials. It didn't ask me because I've already authorized my own app. But what you can see here is it redirected me to login because I don't know why. We'll figure that out. But this is what I'm interested in here. Is this code? It threw back in the URL parameters, query parameters. Yes, I don't know. The URL, the query, I think is what this is called. Yeah, parameters, question mark is parameters, query. I don't know now. I can't get my terminology right. So this thingy, after the question mark, this code is what I'm interested in. This ideally is what should go. See if I fire back up to my API. No, not authentication, services, Square service. This should go right in here, which gets passed to here. Now, I did notice that I didn't set the grant type in here, and something's coming back to me. Like, I've done this before, and I feel like maybe that was the issue, because, see that the response? No, it's the body parameters. That's not the response. Here's the response fields. So we're going to set the grant type here. I seem to remember this being an issue before. Authorization code. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and set this here. This is going to be authorization underscore code. Okay. We're going to save that and let that kind of simmer there for a second. And I want to see what this kicks us back with. And I have console.log. I don't want console.log body. I am going to leave this over on the right-hand side where y'all can't see the request. Console.log response.data, because I think this token does actually allow you to have access to my account, which, again, excuse me, it's all test data. There's nothing in there that's really of any kind of importance, but, you know, security, as I say. So where were we? We got to find a way to pull this out of the parameters in there. So I don't want it to redirect to login. Where do I have? I'm going to pull something else up on my right-hand side here. I want to look at the settings of my app itself. I'm going to see what's up here, and then I'll bring the screen back. When I set up the Square Developer Dashboard, when I set up the app, it did require me to put in a redirect URL, which is what it's going to pass to. Yeah, see Oauth. Okay, so you can't see anything here. In here, see, this weird thing. It shows active tokens here, like it's doing something. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get it. So, but this is where it should redirect to. Now, what's interesting is it went to Square Auth. I'm assuming that's because I don't have that. I'm assuming it's because I don't have this route in place inside my view router. So we're going to go ahead and add that too. Just because all I do is I want to see if I can get the token back. So let's go. Where am I looking? VS Code. Okay, so back in, we're going to scroll down. We're going to go into the UI and we're going to go to router. And here's where I have all my routes set up, right? So under path, my children. Yeah, see, if the path is nothing, it redirects for logging. That's why. Oh, what did I do? Get rid of that. All right, do I have something else going on here? /login, /onboarding. Okay, so I can actually create, we're going to expand this and just copy this because this will be a good example for us. Okay, so we're going to do Square Auth granted, this is all kind of temporary, just to see if I can get something. Square Oauth. And I'm going to go ahead and create another file in here, which is just going to be temporary. New file, square auth.view, and I'm going to do scaffold it, and we're going to give it a P, and we're going to go yay. We're going to call it at that. Let's give it a name, square auth, and we're going to get rid of the style tags for the sake of cleaning up, even though this is a temporary file. And I want to see what this does. So if we go into save this, okay, we are going to go back into here, and I'm going to scrap that, go home, come back to auth to square. Oh, you can't see that. I just realized that. It's on the right-hand side. Interesting. It threw me into my onboarding loop, but it did actually go to square. Why did it do that? Oh, I forgot to change the file, the component it was importing. So modules.app.squareauth.view. All right, let's go back. Let's go here, and to bring this over, what I'm doing is I'm just dropping this down, hitting square auth. It's redirecting. I get yay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I think this dot router dot. Let's see, what do I have set up inside here? Query 2.query. It's the query parameter is what we're looking for. So no, it's not 2. It is, I think, router.query. Let's look up the documentation for this. I want to look up the documentation for the view router. I think it's this query full path, just query. I don't know. View router get query parameters. Here we go. I'm assuming this is correct because I've done this before. This .route.query.test. So this will pull the specific one, which we don't want to do. I just want to see if I can get this to display on the screen. So I'm gonna throw some data in here. Function. We're gonna return the code, and it's gonna be null for now. Actually, you know what? We're gonna make this, since it's gonna be a string, we're gonna just make that an empty string. We're gonna say created. So when this gets created, function, it's gonna call everything inside here. So we're gonna say this dot code. Let's see. If paste that in there. This dot route dot query. This dot code equals JSON dot stringify. This dot route dot query. Okay. So what we're doing here, and one more thing to do, we're gonna double mustache this and put code in there so it displays the code inside the template. So what we're doing here is I created this variable in here, which the template can read from. The double open mustache means it's going to read from this inside here. So it's going to display nothing at first, but if there is a query string inside the route itself, it's going to stringify that object because I want it to be a string, and it's just going to set this .code, which is this data parameter. It's going to set that. So if this all works properly, we should be able to see the code inside here. Well, it's not just the code; it's the whole query, but we'll see what happens. So let's then go back to our browser. There you go. See, it already refreshed and did what I expected it to. So that.query.code. So now I should be able to take this code and make a call to my API and see what happens. Okay. I'm sure no one can see that because it's so tiny, but trust me, it shows the code that we're interested in. So once it's created, if this.query.code, we're actually just going to import Axios right in here. Axios from Axios. So remember, Axios is the library we want to use to actually get calls. We're going to send a post up to our API with this code, and it's going to pass on everything. It's going to console log the response, which again I have hidden off screen because it's going to show a token, which is a secret. So we want to see if this does complete the flow and make things work. So instead of setting that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let request equals, I'm going to steal this here because I have not memorized this quite yet. Although I use this all the time, I should memorize this. I'm basically defining the options for Axios first. So the method's post, the URI is URI. We're going to actually create that here. So let URI equals HTTP //localhost. I think we're on 3000 /API /integrations. Actually, let's see what we set this to. It should be under my app.js file, API integrations square. API integrations square / I think I just need to pass the code so we can get, hold on. I'll explain what we're doing here and then I'll get rid of that. Oh, here's my Square service. Okay, so, oh, that's the service. We need to look at the routes. /auth. Okay, auth is the final thing here we got here. And it's using the bodies. Okay, authorization code, we will need to change that. So we're going to open that, and we're going to do authorization code. Authorization code equals this dot route dot route $route.query .code. Let's see what happens. I am going to change it to console log this. So alrighty, I think this is set up the way that we want it to be now. So if the query exists, which we know it does because we just saw it, and we just stringified it so we can see it. We set the URI, which is this localhost 3000, which is where I'm mounted on for my API, /API /integrations /square, because that's what I have set up in my app.js, which I closed apparently. And then /auth, because that's what's set up, clickety click, that's what's set up here. So this is what's going to call, I'm going to nix my validation for now. My authentication middleware does validate that the user is correct, but I don't want to wire that up right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and comment that out so it's not used here. But if that works, explain this a little bit further. Headers, content type, application JSON, which is what we want. Everything that comes to my API is application.json. Let me check something else here real quick. Okay, making sure that I'm not hiding everything on my handling some secrets. Now I have OBS over on this side. I don't know what side I got it on. I got it on this side, I think. And I see handling. I got it in studio mode, so I can click and transition real quick. But I don't know I haven't quite memorized which one is right yet. Again, I'm still learning this whole streaming thing, and I'm catching on. This is fun. I love doing this. So the data is basically the body or the payload of the request itself. So what we want to send over is authorization code, this.route.query.code. This is what we're looking for in here. So it's going to find it in the body, this authorization code. It's going to pass it into get user token, which is this function here. And that's where it's going to pass through. It's got all, again, I explained earlier, this is the URI, this is the body we want to send. This is what it's going to send to. And then fingers crossed, when we get the response inside response.data, data being the body of the response, we should get our token. At least that's kind of the goal. So let's test this out and see if it works. VS Code. I opened up OneNote by mistake. It's going to take over my screen, isn't it? Close. Can I close it? Yeah, one. All right. Let's go into our browser. Let's make this. I'm going to refresh this because I got my code back. And it doesn't do anything. It does not do anything. Network. I'm going to refresh. Square auth code. I don't see it actually make. Oh, stupid. Last thing I forgot to do is actually initiate the request. So I created my request object, and we're going to do await Axios. I have to go ahead and change this to an async function because now I throw an await in there. Axios, and then pass in my request. There are a couple different ways you can use Axios. You can specify a lot of these options and whatnot directly in, like chain them inside of it. I like to set them up ahead of time because I can copy and paste it between my different functions where I'm calling out to APIs and just quickly make modifications to the little options, and you know, it's most of the functions actually stay exactly the same. There's probably a way I can reduce some of the copy and pasting that I'm doing, but it's so minimal that I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing because it makes sense to me. I like seeing those options and everything specified out before it gets passed in. So, all right. So now we're going to, well, if I save it, actually, it's probably going to do it right away. Gonna call failed with 401. See, that's the problem I was getting with earlier. I'm not showing anything on the screen, so I can, there's no token. But this is what I was getting earlier. Request failed with status code 401. Now the question is why. So let's minimize this guy out again. Leave a little bit on the screen so you can see that stuff is flying through. This is what I was running into earlier, and I have no idea why it's doing this. So the grant type is set to authorization code. I'm going to console. Did I console log that? That failed. Oh, I can't console log this here because it errored out. Okay, I want to console log the request. Console.log body, which then I'm going to have to close and clear screen and reopen my API because it's going to display my app ID and my secrets on here. So let's go ahead and creep that guy out there a little bit so y'all can't see it. Hello there, Balithiornm. I think I probably butchered that name, but what's up? All right, so that is there. Okay, that's done. Let's go ahead and try and make this request again. So all I should have to do is refresh the page and 100% butcher. Good. I read code, I don't say names. So client ID, client secret, code. Yeah, that's the thing. Everything looks fine as far as the request goes. So I'm going to cancel out my API. I'm going to clear screen. So I get something new, return a bunch, so I know that I don't want to go fly that back up there, and npm run dev to start the API back up again. I'm interested in checking something. So if I go into my browser, now notice earlier that this guy says it's got 7 active tokens. Let's go ahead and refresh this. I'm interested. See, it went up. So the token's being issued, but why on earth is it saying that it doesn't like it? And that's what I don't understand, and I'm so totally confused. I've been writing code for 14 years now, if you count HTML and CSS as code, which I kind of do slightly, a little bit. Maybe I'm giving myself more credit. As far as hardcore code writing, probably 10 years. I started off, as a story while I'm kind of digging into this, I started off with Java as my first development language because one day I woke up and said, I want to create an app and I want to write something for Android. So I just dove in, and I spent about 4 months creating an app for Android. It was a basic note-taking app, but I spent all night after night at a local, it's a restaurant chain, but there was free coffee, so I paid like $2 and just got unlimited coffee for like 8 hours and just hammered away and taught myself how to code. Did publish it to the App Store. It made me a little money for a while. I think I earned like $15 a month on average. So let's see. Noped out. Yeah, you gotta. I've always kind of said to actually enjoy doing this stuff, and a lot of people do. You gotta be a little crazy, especially at the level that some people do. But what kinds of more hardware? Yeah, I actually come from an infrastructure background, so my official profession was senior systems engineer until not too long ago. So I still do that. I'm kind of a senior. I'm a systems and software engineer. So I maintain a data center for about 20 warehouses around the U.S. and the whole network and everything. So how about you? What kinds of things do you do? Just bear with me. I'm looking through my requests that I sent in earlier. Let's see. I want to look at the request and make sure that it, well, hold on one second. There is one more thing I want to try. So underneath my routes, I have, this is where it's returning. I want a console.log here. Actually, I want to try catch inside of here. Computer repair place. Yep, that's where I started, actually. I used to work at a retailer in the tech center. It's like kind of, I don't know where you're from, but in the U.S. we got Best Buy, and Geek Squad's kind of the most common name. It was a place like that. All right, I'm going to try catch this. So to give a little explanation as far as what I'm doing here, inside my routes I have a try catch, but I have this log error which kind of gives a generic, just a generic error message that I want to log to my API. I want to expand on that eventually, but I haven't quite done it yet. So instead, what I'm trying to do is I want to see what the error actually looks like that's being returned back from Square. So I'm going to do console.log error.data, I think is what it is. Error.data, I think, is what is thrown from Axios when something fails, and then I'm just going to throw error. So basically, adding a second layer, a second catch before it gets passed back up to the routes. So currently in the U.S. Cool. Let's see. So let's try this now. So I'm back down inside. Let's see. Looks like my API has recycled. So I've got about 10 minutes here to just see how much progress we can make on this. If not, we might have to call it. Into the browser. Let's go ahead and refresh the page again. And it gives me undefined. It's still complaining. Shouldn't have anything on there. Error.data is undefined. Let's just console.log error and see what happens. All right, this is the Axios catch error. Axios catch error 401. How to handle it? Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I think I have reference code over here. No, customer backend service. Catch if error.response. So error.response. Let's see what that gives us. Whoops, not two. Let's go ahead and close that guy out, and let's try and do this again. Now, I know, again, if reiterating this, I can't really show some of this stuff on screen because it is showing secrets as it's flying through the console. Service.not authorized. And that's kind of the same problem I was having earlier. I almost feel like, you know, hold on one second. I can probably fix this. Token, never mind. I can't. It's still showing the secrets in here. So it's not right now, but I'm going to expand this out so you can see what it's throwing me. This right here, this is exactly the same error message I was getting earlier. It says authorization code is expired. Please check out blah, 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 how it works. Service.not authorized. That's weird because it's getting a token. I would think it's authorized and working, but it doesn't seem to be. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to go and try one more thing. I want to look at the documentation again for Square. and I want to, let's blow this up. I got to redirect URI. This, if this works anything like, what's the other API I worked with? Oh, Cognito. I created for work an authentication flow that uses our internal Active Directory federated services, so our users can sign into our applications using their network logons. And if this redirect URI was not specified, it did not like it for whatever reason. So I don't know. Let's try throwing something in there and see what happens. See if we can get some kind of error back. I got the client ID, I got the secret, I got the code. Let's see, this is required if grant type is set to authorization code. That's set. Let's try redirect URI. You said you're currently in the US. Where are you from? Are you from the US or are you moving out? So redirect URI, and we're gonna do http://localhost 8082 / I don't know, login. No, is it 8082 I'm working on? 8082. Okay. 8082. So let's I don't know. We're gonna see what happens here. All right. Let's refresh this. I'm going to bring this back over here, refresh the screen, and yep, still didn't like it. Didn't like it. And I think I'm going to submit a support request to Square because everything in my request looks right, yet it's not working, and I don't know why. I've checked. I'm going to check the request body again just to make sure something's not being pulled in wrong. You know, I could check one more thing. Let's do client secret. I'm going to duplicate this, commented it out, and I'm just going to do like 1, 2, 3. I'm going to see if we get some kind of like wrong thing back, see if we get the same error message back. Just for giggles, you know? So that's been done. Let's recycle, refresh this page again. See what error message I get. Yeah, same thing. Not authorized. So, whoa, actually same thing. Now that's interesting. So it got, even though I changed my secret. No, wait a second. This is a different error message. I'm sorry. I'm getting spent here, honestly. So let's try this one more time. I want to just double check to make sure I get a different error message. Because one said not authorized and one said the authorization code is expired. Let's try and get that again then. Okay, so I'm going to close this out. If it says the authorization code is expired, yeah, maybe we'll do something. Maybe we've set something in the right direction. So we're going to 8082 again. I'm going to go to Square Auth. Got my code. No way. It worked. I can't believe it worked. I can't really show this. Hold on one second. Actually, maybe I can. Hold on one second. Handling secrets again. I'll be right back. I can still talk while I'm doing this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to throw something in Sublime Text, and I just got to clean it up real quick, and you can see what it gave me back. I cannot believe at the last second we got this thing working. I'm so happy right now. JSON reindent. Oh, I didn't like that. Actually, JSON. I'm reindenting some stuff so it looks a little cleaner here. Reindent. I'm going to I'm going to access token 1, 2, 3, 4. Secret 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to test this one more time, actually. I want to see if getting rid of that redirect URI made a difference. Can I blow this up? Okay. Merchant ID. Merch. I don't know if that's secret, but we're going to do merch 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So this looks fine. Nothing is private in here. We seem to be good. All right. I'm bringing this over to the main screen. We're going to transition back. This is what it gave back. So this is my request body. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to bring this over to the main screen. We're going to transition back. This is what it gave back. So this is my request body. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to bring this over to the main screen. We're going to transition back. This is what it gave back. So this is my request body. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to bring this over to the main screen. We're going to transition back. This is what it gave back. So this is my request body. that got sent through the wire to Square. And this is what it gave me back. And this right here, or well, not token 1, 2, 3, 4, but you know, whatever is returned, is exactly what I'm looking for. So now, and I'm probably going to get some working on this before I get a chance to stream next time. So if I think about it, I'll show what I've done next time. But it should, what I'll do is I want to take this token, save it to the user, and then try and I'm going to create a route to basically import the customers from Square. So what it's going to do is we're going to use that token inside this method, this get customers method, which uses our get Square customers. It's poorly named. I need to fix the naming of that, but that's no big deal. And excuse me, it's going to iterate over it, get all the customers, pull them all in, and now boom, they've been synced. Dude, this is awesome. I'm really excited now. I can't believe we figured this out at the last minute. For the sake of argument, we're going to try one more thing. I'm going to comment out our authorization code here just to see if, or no, sorry, not the others, the redirect URI. I'm going to comment this out just to see if this does help us get something back. So we'll save this, and I'm going to come back in here. We're going to go back to the root of the app because I want to get a different one of those authorization codes. Auth to Square. There it is. Oh man, it did work. I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know what I did wrong. Unless I was just getting so tired that I said the code is expired after putting the grant type authorization code. I don't know. Excuse me, but it yeah, it's working, and I'm pretty excited right now. So with that, I'm going to sign out. Thank you for the couple people who joined me, and thank you for the couple of follows. I really do appreciate it. If you are interested in what I do, I'm hoping to get subs set up soon. I don't even know what's required with that with Twitch, but I don't even need you to sub right now. If you can give me some follows, share me out with some friends and family. You can find me on my website, brianmorrison.me. That's where a lot of my resources are starting to go. The website is still kind of, I had the website and then I just ripped it apart, and I'm starting to piece it back together. So you can always find me there. I'm going to put links to all my different social resources there. I go live 8:30 Wednesdays, 8:30 Central is my kind of standard time to go live. But I just sprinkle in random times throughout the week. So who knows? You might catch me on different times. What else I want to say? Oh, codinglive.group. If you are interested in doing some kind of live streaming coding thing like I do, I created a group, as I said earlier in the stream, to help other individuals getting into the same thing and get working. So yeah, join us there. Codinglive.group is the direct invite to the Discord channel, or Discord server. But thanks again for joining me, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye bye.